Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you my Starry Night necklace. And so this is the necklace that we are going to be making. Of course, this is one that I've made ahead of time, so this isn't the exact one that we'll be making, but we are basically going to try and make this. So just for note, this one was made using Kato Cobalt, Kato Blue, Kato Black, Kato White and Kato Yellow. Just like we're going to do today with some of the colours, but today I'm going to be using Primo because I know that most of you use Primo rather than Kato. But if you did want to use Kato, it's just the Kato Blue, Kato Yellow, Kato White and Kato Black. Just replace the Kato colours with the ones that we're using today in Primo. So we'll be using that one. So what you're going to need for this project is Primo Cobalt, Zinc Yellow and White. And you're also going to need black, but we'll use that later. So now what you want to do is you want to take these and you want to chop them into little bits. So first, before you do that, you just want to quickly roll them into something other than a ball, which makes chopping it easier. Okay, and then you just don't worry about coarse pieces, just chop it into slices, just like this, so that we can mix it up later with the other colours. So that's the white done. I'll do the other one now, just like that. Now there's no exact measurement for how much you need of each colour. I went for around an equal amount for each colour, so each ball is about the same size as all the other balls, but you can mess around with it by adding maybe a bit more blue, maybe a bit more yellow, maybe even a bit more white. So just have fun and see what you go with. The other one that I made actually was made from leftovers of a cane that I had. Okay, so you just mix it up like that, so you just have them all in a piece together, and you just squish it together and then start rolling. Now I'm trying to do this gently so I don't shake the camera. Basically just roll it into a log like that, and then just you want to chop it into a little bit more pieces. So not too fine, but you do want to chop it into more pieces so that your colours get mixed up a little bit more. And then just mix that back together again. And now we can put a sheet of black over it. And now this black was run out on my third thinnest setting on my pasta machine. And so we'll wrap that around this as soon as I get it into a compact cylinder. Okay. And now just before we do this, just go over it and just chop this in half and see how you like the distribution of colour. Like, I think there's way too much yellow in this. What do you think? I think that we should add quite a bit more cobalt blue. So I'm going to go and do that, and then I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so I've chopped up a block of cobalt blue, and I've just chopped that up into here. And that should give us a little bit more of a more blue colour. Okay, because I thought that was a little bit too yellow. So you can always add more colours if you think you need more. So don't worry about adding a little bit more. That's perfectly fine, because you can't really tell in the beginning. So if you were to do this now and you don't want to include colour later on, that would be around a ball of blue that was twice the size of all the other balls. So it would be 2 part blue, 1 part yellow and 1 part white. Okay, and so I'm much more satisfied with that. Now I will bring over our sheet of black. And that's the right size almost. Had it very close. I'm just gonna trim up over there and then trim these sides. And wrap. There we are. And it doesn't have to be a precise wrapper either, just wrap it with the black and try it and get it as close to one as possible, as one wrap as possible. This project's really nice and easy because it's not exactly what you would call precise, it's actually somewhat opposite that. So now what you want to do is you want to take this and you want to gently roll it, and you want to roll from one end to the other, trying to push out air bubbles that might have accidentally got trapped. So I'll reduce it down a little bit and then I should be able to see where the air bubbles are, if there are any. So I can see there are a few. Here's one, just slit it there and smooth out. There's another one, smooth it. Okay, and I don't see any more. And so you want to reduce this quite far down. I want it to be reduced until, I'd say the circular diameter is around 1 centimeter. I'll show you when it's done. But that's basically how far I want it to go. So this is gonna take a little while. I mean, we're almost there. Okay, so I've reduced it down. You can see it's much smaller now, and this entire thing is quite long. So let me see if I can fit all of that on camera. But there you are, basically that's how long it is. So I'll put that off to the side, so we only need this end. And now don't worry if you get things like this where the black doesn't cover the entire thing, that's perfectly fine. Now I want to cut off pieces and pinch off the ends and roll it so that one end tapers off. And then roll that into a little snail. And just set those aside for the moment. And you'll do that with all of them. Just taper it off. And roll into a little snail. And you'll do this basically up the entire length. Now you don't have to do just snails, so the best one of course is the snails because that's the part that's going to give you the nice swirly Starry Night effect. But let's say you put a few snails together here, so I'm gonna put these together like that, and I'm gonna put another one in over here, just deciding where I want it. There, put that in there. Okay, then what you can do also is you can take this and you can reduce it down, and just remember to always taper off the ends whenever you're doing this one. So this one we're going to make a long strand. And actually I'm going to take this apart. Just going to make a nice long snake. And I'm going to wrap it around these pieces partially. There, so you can decide where that's going to be, and then you can go and take this end and roll that into something. I'll probably do that on this end as well. So you can have those dotted around if you wanted. You can also make yourself tiny little pieces. So I'm just going to taper off both of these ends like always. And I might just stick a little piece in over there, and you can always make them smaller or larger if you want. Just remember to tape off those ends, that's quite important. And there's another one that I'm just going to stick in over there. So those are the 3 types of shapes that I like to work with, and then I just make a big piece, however long it takes for me to get rid of all of this. So I'll come back when I've shown you everything. So now that that is finished, we can move on to the next step. So you can see that I have a whole bunch of different components in here, just using basically spirals, and these little round balls, and these little snakes as well. So this took me about an hour to put together, maybe even 2 hours. Not sure, I wasn't watching the time, but it took quite a while. So you do need to have the patience to put all of this together, because it makes a big difference later on, but it does take quite a while. So due to the camera corrupting a few video files, the next video sequence will include a earlier project that I did. So you will repeat the same process that I will be showing you with this sheet over here, with the one that I was showing you previously. So what you do is you'll roll your pieces flat. You want it to be completely flat with no bumps in it. Then you want to bring over your tissue blade, and I'm using my flexible tissue blade because that is my preferred one. You'll grip it close to the middle and gently shave off the surface of your clay. Just like that, to reveal your pattern. And you'll do that along your entire sheet. Now in the previous sheet that we made, the one that I was showing you in the previous part of the video before it got corrupted, you'll notice that instead of just doing it in a random shape, I had kind of a long rectangular shape. You do want to follow that shape because it means that you'll be able to cut out more beads. So if you're going to make a lot of beads, you want to see how wide your beads are. So my beads were about that long. Make it a little bit longer and then stretch it out so you can cut lots and lots and lots of beads out. And then you'll just flatten that out, shave off the surface, and then once you've finished shaving off your surface, like I am here, so you do that for the entire sheet of clay so that it looked like that. You would then run that through the thickest setting, and then that will bring you to the next part of the video where my camera wasn't corrupting files. Okay, so I finished shaving it. So here we are, one side all the way up to the other side. So this one's quite a bit brighter than my other one, so I'll just bring over my other necklace. So this one, the Kato colours were a little bit more toned because it was leftovers, so they're a little bit more muddy and grey. But this one was using straight colours, and so it's a little bit brighter. So I think I actually prefer this one because it's brighter. Now I want to run this through the pasta machine again on my second thickest setting, just to flatten it out. Okay. Now we have to peel it apart. And I feel that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So now we are ready to start making our beads. Now, I have some cutters, and I'm going to be using this size cutter, and I sell these on my Etsy shop, Jessama Design. They come in a full set, so this is the smallest cutter in the set, but they come in a full set, so I'll just bring that over. So you could make this necklace with this full set if you wanted to, but I just want to do it with the smaller ones, but you can see here's the full set. So I'll provide a link to those cutters on my Etsy shop, but for the moment we're going to be using the smallest one. Okay, I just want to roll this out a little bit. It's got a little gouge there. And I'm going to start cutting. And before I start cutting, I just want to make sure this is laying down properly. And you can't see that at the moment because it's right off camera. But basically, I'm just going to go along the length over here. And I'm going to cut out as many as I can. And we could probably make a second Starry Night out of the leftovers because these colours aren't mixed up that much. We're not going to use up all of this, of course. And so whatever leftovers are left, you could screw it up into a ball and just repeat the process basically. So there's just a little bit over here that I'm just going to cut out. Just having a little bit of trouble with it. And basically I'm just going to carry on cutting out as many of these as I can along the length. So I'm going off camera again, and I've got a bunch of sheet left over here that's basically sitting off of the tile. So I'm just gonna lift this up. There we are. Bring over this sheet that's left over, and we'll cut out more beads. Okay, so now we have about 20 shapes. So next what you want to do is you just want to go pop them into the oven for about half an hour just to set them so that we can apply the backings later on. But before you do that, just make sure to go over with your finger and just give it a light smooth just to get rid of any obvious fingerprints. We don't need to worry about smoothing these off pedantically because we are going to be putting resin on them, so we don't need to worry too much about getting them as smooth as possible because we're going to just give them a light sand and then pop resin on them, and that will hide almost all the, basically all the all the imperfections. So I'll pop that in the oven for half an hour and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so they are out of the oven and I am now ready to put the backs on. So what we'll do is we'll just gently lift these up off the tile, just like this, and you want to be careful. And once we've lifted them off of the tile, we can bring over our sheet of black clay, and this is black primo and it was rolled out on my thickest setting. We'll just take each of our beads, pop it on top, and now I took this tile and I popped it into the oven so these haven't distorted at all. So now I can take the cutter that they were cut using, and I can use that cutter to cut them out perfectly. And then, whoops, just want to gently smooth in these edges. Like that. And lift it up. And I'm just busy smooshing it onto the back. Okay, and just go along and smooth it and make sure that you're happy with it. And take a look at it from the front and see if you need to do any trimming. Because sometimes once you've lifted it up, it does need a little bit of a trim. Just go gently along the sides. You need to be careful because this bead doesn't have as much strength as I would like it to, because I only put it in for about half an hour. Okay. Once you're done with that, take the back, and I've just got a few crumbly bits over here, so I just want to get rid of those bits before we add texture to our back. And the texture that I'm going to use are these pieces that I got from Towards Polymer Clay. And I want to use this nice foam one, which is really nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down the tile. And I'm going to take my bead and I'm gently going to press it onto the foam with the black side down. And that will start the process, and then I'll come from the back and just texture it a little bit more. Don't press too hard because I put these in for a short amount of time. I didn't actually put them in for half an hour. I keep saying that wrong. I actually only put it in for 15 minutes because I just wanted to set them. Oops. So now the back's textured. Just go and gently press on the sides to get that black to fit nicely up against the wall of your bead, because you don't want any black sitting out. There you go. And just lay your bead down and look at it right from the top over here so that you can see if there's any black peeking around. So there's just a little bit there. And then once you're happy with it and you're happy with the texture, you can pop all of your beads that have had this done to them into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then we can do a smear along the sides because that does need to be done, and then we can start stringing them and finishing them and all the rest of the stuff that we need to do. Okay, so now that they are out of the oven, we can move on to smearing the sides. So as you can see here, the sides aren't as clean as I would like them to be. What I actually want them to look like is like this. So I've already done a smear on this one. So you can see it's got a nice black side and it looks much neater. So all you do for that is you just take one of your beads, and I'll move these out of the way as well. You grab a little bit of black Primo, roll it into a sausage, stick that sausage onto the edge of your bead and smear down the length. Now I have a video on how to do this in detail, and so I'll provide a link for that in the description below, where I have a whole bunch of tips and things on how to make this process a little bit easier, because it can be a little tricky until you get the hang of it. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. There we are. You'll just smear along all four sides. And then just go back and just with your hands smooth out any obvious imperfections. Don't worry about smoothing it yet. What we want to be doing at the moment is just cleaning it up, seeing if there are any areas that are bare, if there's any overhangs like over there and things like that. And then once that's done, I'm going to bring over, let me just clear this up, I'm going to bring over one of these rubber tools that I got from createalong.com. And I'm just going to grab one of those and use that to smooth my edges. And this works better than my fingers. So I'll just do that for all of my beads. And then you'll pop them in the oven for another half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then I can show you how to sand them and finish them off. So now that our beads are out of the oven, we want to start sanding them. So I'll bring over my polishing papers, and I'm going to start at the lowest grit, which is a 400, and I'm going to start sanding the top. And now you want to sand the top, the bottom and the sides, and just go in a nice circular motion, and you'll go from the lowest grit, which is a 400, all the way up to highest grit, which in my case is an 8000, and you'll sand the sides and the back. And then once you've done that, I can show you how to put Renaissance wax on it. Okay, so now we have sanded our beads, we can drill them. So I'm going to use a pin drill, and I'm gently going to make a guide hole on one side, and I'll do the same on the other side. Then I'm going to drill through. There we go. And just clean up your hole. There we go. Now we want to put some Renaissance wax on. So I'm going to bring over an old polishing cloth, pick up a little bit of Renaissance wax with that, and use that on the back of the bead and on the sides. We don't want to do it on the front because we're not going to be resining the front. So I like to put the Renaissance wax on before I do the resin because it almost repels the resin. So it helps keep your bead clean. There we go. So you'll do that with all of the other beads, and then we can resin them. Okay, so now we are ready to move on to the resin part. So I'm going to use this ice resin plunger that I got from Linda's Art Spot because it allows me to mix small amounts, which is all I need today, since I've already done most of the beads in my last resining. Okay, so what I want to do, gently move this down, there we go, and then I'm going to press on the plunger with even force and let all of the drips drain off so that you make sure that you get an even amount. Then bring this back over, click into place and slide it closed. And now you have a whole bunch of resin in there and it was all measured out perfectly for you. Then I'll just take my skewer and mix this up because I don't need much resin here. And this is what's nice about that plunger, you can mix as much or as little as you want, which is great. And it measures it up perfectly for you so you don't have to worry about anything. So it's, if you use a little bit of resin or you need only a tiny amount of resin, it's a nice thing to have in the back. When I am mixing a lot of resin, I like to just use the bottles because I use a lot of resin, so I like to use the bottles most of the time. But some of the time I only need a tiny amount of resin, so I like to have that thing as a little backup instead of having to mix more resin than I need. And if, for instance, you don't really use resin that much and you only need a tiny amount every now and then, those plungers will go quite a long way for you. So I'm just making sure to mix that all up. And then once you've mixed it all up thoroughly, you want to let this rest. Now it's summer here at the moment, so it's really hot for me. So this resin is quite warm, which means that it's going to cure faster, but it also means that it's not as thick as it would be if it was cold. So we're going to let that rest for a tiny amount of time and these bubbles will float to the surface. And in the meantime, I'll bring over the resining mat. So here is the resining mat, and I'm sorry about that awful colour, but can't do much about it. And here's the resin, so I'm just going to wipe off my stick and I'm going to bring over this little straw and blow. So let me see if I can get that for you on camera. Actually, I prefer the wider end. And that gets rid of most of the bubbles. So now we're ready to resin our bead. Okay, so due to some issues with my camera and the software going corrupt and stuff, this is the only bead that I haven't resined, and that is why I've mixed up so little resin here. If you were doing the entire project, you'd want about 10 mils of this resin or so. 10 mils to 7 mils, I'd say, of resin to cover the entire project. But because this is the only bead I haven't resined, I had to mix up a small amount of resin. So I'll bring over that little bit of resin, and you'll just pop that onto the surface and spread it out. And you'll do this for all of your other beads. But those are finished curing at the moment, so I'm actually waiting for this one to finish up. Silly camera decided to go and corrupt some of the video files, so I had to redo this part. But there we are. That's all the resin you need for an individual bead. And so now you'll bring over your straw again, and you'll just blow over the surface. And that will get rid of all of the bubbles. Then you'll let this cure for a full 24 hours, and then we can start assembling our necklace. Okay, so now that our beads are finished curing, we want to separate them into two groups. And so I've separated them into the yellow group and the blue group. Because when you're stringing them, you don't want a bunch of yellows together or a bunch of blues together. You want to try and get them to be fairly even together. So I've separated them out into these two groups. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this one group to the side and that one out the way. And then we're going to do one blue, one yellow, one blue, one yellow, and so on until you've used up all your beads. And you, when you wear the necklace, aren't really going to notice all that much. But if you were to have a bunch of yellows all together, you would notice. So it's just a good way to make sure that you space it out properly. And then I'll just add these onto the end, like that. So now we'll bring over our Acuflex, and this is just some black Acuflex, and you'll want to bring over a Charlotte crimp, and you want to string your Acuflex through your Charlotte crimp. Now this could be a little tricky, there we go, because the hole in the Charlotte crimp is pretty small. Then you'll bring over a crimp and pop that onto the cord, bring over your pliers and squish that crimp onto your cord, and make sure you squeeze it nice and tight. Then you bring that Charlotte crimp that you strung on up, and you want to close that around your crimp just like that, and just pop the two together. Then you'll bring over a jump ring, pop that through the loop in the Charlotte crimp, and you'll bring over your clasp, and I'm using a toggle clasp today, and then just bring over another pair of pliers to help you close up the jump ring. And that's the first end. Now you'll want to have some seed beads, and now I'm just using these clear glass ones, so you can hardly see them. I'm just using these as spacers. And what you want to do is I want to string on about 10 of these. Now their holes are quite small because they're seed beads, so sometimes you might need to trim up this end to make it flush. But I want to string on about 10 seed beads, then the first Starry Night one. And I'll carry on doing that because it's going to take me a while to do that. Just like that. So now I have a bunch of seed beads over here. Now just string that down. Then you'll bring over your first Starry Night bead, and what I'm going to do is I don't want all of these, so I'm going to take off 4 because I have too many otherwise. Then you'll string on your Starry Night bead. Then you'll bring over one of those seed beads and you'll string on a seed bead. Then you'll grab another Starry Night and you'll string that on. And sometimes if the holes are a little too small, they got bunged up by accident, you can just drill them. So basically you'll go Starry Night beads, seed bead, Starry Night, seed bead, and so on until you've finished up all of your Starry Night beads. Okay, just like that. So you can see that it's seed bead, Starry Night, seed bead, Starry Night, and so on. And then once you reach the end, you want to make another layer of seed beads that are about the same length as the one on the other end. Then you'll bring over your charlotte crimp again and get that through the hole, which again can be quite tricky because this hole's a little thin. There we go. And you'll bring over your crimp bead, pop on your crimp bead, bring over your pliers, squish that flat and make sure to squeeze it properly. Bring up your charlotte crimp over that crimp and squish so that it covers the crimp. There you go. Bring over a jump ring, pop that through the hole. Bring over the last piece of your clasp, pop that on. Bring over your other pliers, close up the jump ring, and that's about it. And then what you'll do is, let me just, whoops, wipe this away, and then you'll need to work this halfway up. There we go, like that. And that is your necklace. And now, because you've been handling the resin a little bit, if your hands were a little sweaty or you were pressing on it very hard, you might want to give it a quick wipe with a cloth just to clear up any fingerprints that might appear. But overall, that's about it. So I do hope that that tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do like and share this video if you liked it, as that is also very helpful to me. And please do visit my Patreon account, where I have a Polymer Clay membership on different tiers, and I post tutorials every single month on there, ranging in difficulty, and I'm sure you guys won't want to miss that, so please do check that out. And if you happen to make this project, please do send in the photos on my website, jessamatutorials.com, or you can just tag me in a Facebook post or Instagram post if you do post on one of those sites, as I always love to see what you guys make, as you guys are very creative with these ideas. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.